The hallway wasn't supposed to have anyone in it, just a paper sign taped crookedly to a metal frame. Closed for renovation. The kind of notice people ignore only when they feel entitled. And tonight, no one felt entitled. The floor was sticky, the lights too bright, humming with that sick fluorescent buzz that makes your ears ring. A girl in a denim jacket moved first, lifting her phone because she thought she heard water behind the door. But instead, her elbow clipped a mop bucket, sending it rolling 3 feet with a metallic rattle that sounded wrong in a place that wasn't supposed to echo. The noise bounced, sharp and ugly, jolting someone around the corner. A staff member in a faded uniform who froze mid-step, eyes widening too visibly before dropping to the floor like she had dropped a secret. And then came the mistake, the one that cracked the night open. A boy, barely 20, shaking off the cold, laughed at the bucket, too loud, too sudden, too forced, like he needed the sound to prove he belonged here. And the laugh hit the wall and ricocheted straight toward the 3 figures stepping into the hallway. It wasn't supposed to be anyone important, definitely not someone recognizable, definitely not Jungkook. But it was him. Hood up, mask low, head tilted slightly, as if the fluorescent lights were too unforgiving. Behind him, 2 men walked close, one checking a door number, the other glancing at a message, both acting like this was routine. Except the laugh had already betrayed the room, because the girl with the denim jacket looked up too fast, the phone in her hand slipping for a millisecond, just long enough for the front camera to catch his reflection in the metal cabinet behind her. She sucked in air, not a gasp, not a scream, more like a choke, an involuntary inhale someone makes when seeing something they know they shouldn't. The boy beside her elbowed her, not understanding, then understanding too much, pulling his phone up halfway before dropping it again like it burned. A cleaner at the far end of the hall paused mid-mop, staring openly, then pretending to wipe the same spot again and again, badly. One of the men with Jungkook muttered something, a warning or a cue, but it didn't matter. The girl in denim was already whispering, "No way, no way, no way," without looking up, her thumb trembling as she opened the camera app she pretended she wasn't opening. A man exiting the stairwell stopped dead when he saw the trio. His mouth actually opened, like he forgot how to close it. Then he backed up a single step, bumping into the railing with a dull clang that made everyone jump. Phones appeared in fragments, not fully lifted, just angled, testing, trembling, betraying the panic of people who suddenly realized they were in a place they were not supposed to see someone like him. This wasn't a backstage lounge, not a VIP suite, not a private corridor. It was a maintenance hallway with peeling paint and a vending machine humming like an old engine. A place staff used to hide smoke breaks, a place no celebrity should ever stand in. Jungkook wasn't looking at anyone, but everyone was looking at him. Sideways, through reflections, through the corners of screens they didn't dare raise. A girl near the ice machine whispered, "Is that?" and choked on her second syllable because a man behind her shushed her violently, hand gripping her shoulder, as if volume alone could undo what she'd already seen. Someone else dropped a bottle of water. It rolled, spinning, wobbling toward Jungkook's shoe before stopping just short. And the pause that followed wasn't silence. It was chaos held by the throat. One of the men with him reached to guide him forward, but the hallway was clogged now. Bodies shifting, backing up, leaning in, pretending to fix hair, pretending to tie shoes, pretending to look anywhere except straight. Someone's flash fired by accident, so fast, so stark, so premature. The girl who took it gasped and slapped her hand over the camera, as if covering the lens could undo the light already cast. The security camera on the ceiling blinked. A staff member whispered, "Don't let him be here." Not as judgment, but as fear. Fear of being the person on shift when something like this happened. The air tightened. People angled their phones the way you angle weapons. Slow, uncertain, but inevitable. And Jungkook, told this place was private and not open to visitors, stood in a hallway that suddenly wasn't private at all. The moment was already slipping, mutating, ripping into something that couldn't be walked back. And the worst part was obvious to everyone except the ones at the center. No one knew how to leave without making it worse. The crowd didn't move as a unit. There was no clean reaction, no shared breath, just small, jagged shifts, like a pile of chairs collapsing one at a time. And the first collapse came from a girl who tried to back away but stepped on her own tote bag instead, stumbling hard enough to smack her shoulder against the wall. She hissed through her teeth, eyes watering, and that tiny human pain somehow made everything worse, because 3 people turned toward her, then realized they had turned in front of him, and snapped their gazes away too fast, too synchronized to look natural. A guy near the vending machine suddenly decided to pretend he hadn't noticed anything, slamming coins into the slot with exaggerated casualness. But his hands were shaking so violently, the first coin slipped and clattered to the floor. spinning in a sick circle that drew every eye, even as people tried not to look. The hallway shrank. Or maybe the bodies expanded. Someone brushed Jungkook's arm. Not intentionally, just a chaotic shift in a space that had become too narrow for anyone to move without touching someone else. And the contact jolted 3 different reactions. A girl gasped like she'd witnessed a crime. A man flinched and lifted his phone higher than he meant to. And one of Jungkook's companions took half a step forward, then froze, unsure whether stepping in would escalate or de-escalate the moment. A boy in a varsity jacket whispered, "No, no, no. Don't film. Don't." But he was saying it to himself, not to anyone else, because his thumb was already hovering over the record button, his reflection trembling in the soda machine's metal panel. The cleaner who'd been pretending to mop dropped her rag. It hit the tile with a wet slap that sounded like something alive. And when she bent to pick it up, she paused halfway, catching a glimpse of Jungkook in the metal bucket, distorted, warped, but unmistakable. She stood so abruptly, the mop handle smacked the ceiling pipe with a loud metallic clang that made 2 girls scream. Not in fear, but in embarrassment, like their throats had betrayed them. One of Jungkook's men said something sharp under his breath, too soft to hear, too tense to ignore. And suddenly the entire hallway shifted forward by a fraction, as if people were trying to get closer and farther at the same time. Someone knocked over the mop bucket. Water spilled across the floor, darkening the concrete, spreading toward Jungkook's shoes like a slow accusation. A guy in a beanie muttered, "Shit, shit, shit," stepping back into another person, who yelped, "Watch it!" The volume too loud, too exposed, bouncing off the walls and snapping a dozen heads up. The girl with the denim jacket finally lifted her phone fully, not slowly or sneakily, but with the sort of shaky decisiveness that comes when someone realizes the moment will outrun them if they don't grab it. Her screen lit up Jungkook's reflection perfectly, unmistakably, and the glow hit the wall in a way everyone could see. A boy next to her whispered, "Put it down. He's not supposed to." But he didn't finish, because the girl behind him had already started recording. Her hands steady, her face blank, her breathing short. This was the second rupture, not the one that broke the hallway, but the one that broke people's ability to pretend it wasn't happening. Phones rose in asymmetrical angles, not a swarm, worse, a scatter. Some filming, some pretending not to, some switching apps so clumsily their screens flashed bright white. A staff member tried to step in, raising a hand like he was stopping traffic, but he wasn't security, and everyone knew it. Someone muttered, "Don't touch him," even though no one had moved toward touching him. A girl wearing glitter eyeliner stepped too close, shoes sliding on the spreading water, and she caught herself by grabbing the edge of a locked door that rattled loudly under her grip. Jungkook's head turned slightly at the sound, and that tiny movement detonated the hallway. People jerked forward, phones rising higher, others stumbling back, one person whispering, "Oh my God, oh my God." So breathlessly, it sounded like they were confessing. A guy farther back, shaking, said the words no one had dared repeat since the girl outside the club. "What's he doing here?" It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The question didn't spread. It cracked, right down the room, through every person, through every phone, through every attempt to pretend it wasn't happening. And in that crack, the hallway shifted again. Tighter, hotter, closer. Like everything was converging on the fact that Jungkook was standing in a place he should never have been, and everyone now had proof he was there. His companions exchanged a look, quick, panicked, decisive. But the path forward was already blocked by bodies rearranging themselves not out of malice, but out of instinct. Each one trying to get a clear angle, a clear frame, a clear way to say later, "I saw it first." And the worst part? No one moved to leave. No one gave space. No one surrendered the moment. Because everyone could feel it now. Whatever this was, whatever it would become, whatever line had been crossed, it was already too late to undo. The decision to move came at the worst possible second, because the older man at Jungkook's side finally tried to carve a path through the bodies, lifting his arm in a firm, practiced gesture, only to hit someone's phone midair, knocking it clean out of their hand. It flew in a shallow arc, smacked the floor face down, and the girl it belonged to let out a sound so sharp and broken it split the hallway in two. People jerked, pivoted, collided. One guy stepped backward into the spreading water, slipped, caught himself on the vending machine with a metallic crash that made someone else yelp. Another girl dropped her lip gloss, bent to grab it, and lifted her head into the frame of someone's camera, knocking it sideways with a loud thwack. The hallway turned chaotic in fragments, shoulders twisting, elbows jutting, breaths catching. Everybody reacting to everybody else, instead of the 3 men trying to reach the door at the end. A voice somewhere behind the mop bucket hissed, "Stop filming, stop filming." But it came out strangled, powerless, because half the people were already recording, and the other half were pretending they weren't. Jungkook didn't speak, didn't push, didn't retreat, just shifted his weight slightly, and that single shift sent a ripple through the crowd, a messy, confused lurch, as everyone tried to reposition for a better look while pretending they weren't doing exactly that. The cleaner made the mistake of reaching for the fallen phone, slipping on the water and grabbing the nearest thing. Jungkook's sleeve. Not hard, not aggressive, just instinct. But the contact detonated the hallway. Someone gasped loud enough to echo. A boy whispered, "No way." A girl whispered, "Delete it." Another girl whispered, "Don't you dare." And the hallway became a tangle of breath and screens and bodies that couldn't decide if they wanted to flee or swarm. The door at the far end remained closed. The exit behind them was choked with people. And in the middle, the fact that Jungkook was here, of all places, was no longer a rumor or a reflection. It was happening. It was visible. It was impossible to walk back. And everyone knew the next 5 seconds would decide whether this moment stayed a hallway incident or exploded into something none of them could control. The attempt to retreat happened in pieces, not as a plan. One of Jungkook's men tugged his arm gently, trying to pivot him toward the stairwell. But the movement collided with a girl stepping sideways to avoid the spilled water, and her shoulder slammed into his companion's chest with a dull, humiliating thud that made both of them freeze. Someone behind her barked out a nervous laugh. Too loud, too bright, immediately regretted. And 3 phones snapped upward at once, the motion messy and uneven, screens shaking as their owners tried to steady their hands. A boy near the vending machine muttered, "Go, just go." But he wasn't talking to them. He was talking to himself, as if he could outrun the scene by narrating it. Another girl tried to squeeze past the group, pretending she had somewhere else to be, but her bag snagged on a door handle, yanking her backward sharply. She stumbled into Jungkook's path, eyes going wide, frozen like she'd stepped into electric current. Her friend grabbed her wrist and pulled, too hard, almost dropping her own phone, which was already recording despite her claims she wasn't filming. A man near the exit tried to direct people away, waving his arms, but the gesture only drew attention. Heads turning, bodies shifting, making the hallway narrower and hotter. And through all of it, Jungkook moved a single step. Just one. And that was enough to set off a chain of reactions. A gasp too sharp. A voice whispering, "Wait, wait." Someone bumping into someone else. A flash firing crookedly, bouncing off the metal cabinet in a burst of white. The retreat had begun, but it wasn't clean. It wasn't controlled. It was a stumble masquerading as direction. And every person in the hallway felt it. Whatever happened next wouldn't look like an exit. It would look like an escape. And escapes are never silent. The escape collapsed the moment it started, because as Jungkook angled toward the stairwell, a man coming up the steps stopped dead at the top, recognizing the scene before recognizing the person. And in his panic to back away, he slammed his hand against the metal railing. The bang echoed down the hallway like a warning shot. People flinched, shuffled, collided. One girl dropped her phone again. Another tripped over her own foot, trying to get out of the frame she'd never admitted she was filming. And a boy near the wall blurted, "Holy," before choking on the rest, the sound snapping off like a snapped wire. Someone tried to clear a path, but pushed the wrong person, and bodies lurched sideways, forming a crooked, accidental blockade that trapped Jungkook exactly where he wasn't supposed to be. In full view, under unforgiving lights, surrounded by half-hidden phones, and people pretending not to stare, while staring harder than they ever had in their lives. His team finally forced a narrow opening, an ugly squeeze between the vending machine and the dripping mop bucket, and the 3 of them slipped through it, not gracefully, not invisibly, but like people trying to leave a place that refused to let them exit cleanly. A flash went off behind them. Someone swore. Someone laughed in pure shock. Someone whispered, "No, no, no, not like that," as if the moment could still be corrected. But the image was already out there, caught by the girl who hadn't meant to record, captured by the boy who pretended he wasn't filming, reflected in metal, water, glass, screens. When the stairwell door slammed shut behind them, the hallway didn't settle. It twitched, buzzing with breath, adrenaline, disbelief, because everyone understood the same thing at the same time, without needing to say it aloud. They hadn't witnessed a celebrity moment. They had witnessed a breach. And now, the only question left hanging in the wet, fluorescent air was the one no one dared repeat, but everyone was already thinking. What were they doing there?